Thank you very much. First of all, thank you so much for your testimonies and your presence here. My name is Małgorzata Szuleka. I'm a lawyer with the Polish Helsinki Foundation for Human Rights. I have two questions. One is addressed to judges. In the moment when we speak, just right now, Polish media started to report on still confidential government-sponsored draft legislation changing the provision on the disciplinary regime against judges. In the light of this draft proposal, judges who questioned, among others, the status of judges appointed by the new National Council of Judiciary, or in general questioned the constitutional order of the Republic of Poland, everything could fall under this category, like, for example, asking the preliminary request to the European Court of Justice, will face the threat of dismissing from the office or the financial penalties. I would like to ask about your comments on that, especially given the fact that we have two binding decisions of the top of the courts of the top ranks, the Supreme Court and the ECJ. And the second question would be to the MPs. Yeah, sure. This is my second question. Is that we have an infringement proceeding pending concerning the disciplinary regime. I would like to ask what are the Parliament's plan and political groups in the Parliament towards this particular initiative, and whether there are then any calls on the European Commission to move forward with these proceedings. Thank you.
I wanted to ask if people in Poland do understand what is the case, and if they do not understand what is the case, then how to explain them what is the case. Because in Czech Republic we had an attempt that was somewhat similar. It was in its beginnings when the Ministry of Justice wanted to shorten the length in which the chief prosecutor can be in the service, and by this basically remove him, because a few days ago we had very important briefing where basically the state prosecutor again opened an investigation of the Prime Minister. So we had something similar, but there was a huge backlash of people because they understood what is the case. Thank you.
In respect of the first question, what can be done? I've already mentioned that the term of office of current First President of the Supreme Court, who is independent person, expires at the end of April next year. So there will be new presidential election in the Supreme Court. But the General Assembly of Supreme Court is obliged to submit 5 candidates to the President, Duda, who is ex-Law and Justice member and he's backing this party always. So there is enough new judges in the entire Supreme Court nominated by the new National Council of the Judiciary that they can pass one of the candidates of their own, and it will be totally politically loyal candidate. So it is very dangerous for preserving on the independence of entire judiciary, as it is the last standing fortress of the independence of the Polish judiciary at the central level. So, in my opinion, it is absolutely necessary to apply interim measures in the cases pending in front of Court of Justice of European Union. First, to freeze this new mode of disciplinary proceedings, including disciplinary chamber, and the second, to exclude the newly nominated judges of the Supreme Court, nominated by the neo-National Council of the Judiciary, from possibility to participate in this General Assembly, which is going to elect the new president. In terms of the question of Ms. Szuleka concerning this new law concerning possibility of disciplinary punishing of judges for the acts which are not in favor of the ruling power, I've just made a translation of these new provisions, and I still can't believe that it is possible to pass such a law, because it clearly states that the actions questioning the existence of judge's service relationship or the effectiveness of her appointment, it clearly states that it constitutes the disciplinary offense in the situation in which the Court of Justice of European Union questioned the mandate of the newly nominated judges. So, following 19 November judgment of Court of Justice of European Union is going to be directly punished by the amended law on the organization of ordinary courts. Can you imagine something like that? And according to previous media relations, the first version was not in respect of disciplinary actions for such decisions of court, but just for they were going to introduce the new kind of offense. So it would be completely Turkish-like solution. So this is softer, but the penalty can be removal from the judicial office. So very serious penalty. It's clearly contradictory to implementation of the European Union law, which is going to become a statute in Poland. It's unbelievable.
Jeśli mogę, konkludując, bardzo ważne jest dla nas, żeby w tych sprawach, które toczą się już przed Trybunałem Sprawiedliwości Unii Europejskiej, czy to sprawach Komisji, czy także jeszcze zawisłych w Trybunale spraw zadanych przez niezależny polski Sąd Najwyższy, doszło do zabezpieczenia, które polegałoby na tym, o czym mówił sędzia Mazur, czyli ci nowi sędziowie powołani wadliwie przez bardzo upolityczniony organ, żeby nie brali udziału w procedurze. To jest niezwykle istotne. Jeśli chodzi o tych sędziów, którzy są szykanowani, myślę, że powinniście Państwo, parlamentarzyści europejscy, znaleźć odpowiednią komisję, która stworzy listę sędziów i prokuratorów poddawanych szykanom, zapozna się z raportami Komisji Senatu oraz stowarzyszeń sędziowskich, które opisują te szykany. Mamy to wszystko udokumentowane. To nie są tylko nasze gołosłowne twierdzenia. I zapyta polski rząd, dlaczego i stanie w obronie tych ludzi, bo to są unijni sędziowie. W sytuacji, gdy każdy obywatel Unii przyjedzie do Polski, ma mieć zapewnione prawo do bezstronnego sądu. Gdy prowadzi w Polsce firmę, musi mieć sąd, który gwarantuje mu obiektywizm w sporze obywatela Unii, czasem z polskim urzędem, czasem z polską firmą, czasem z firmą z dominującym udziałem kapitału rządu polskiego. Więc to jest dla nas bardzo istotne. Krótko chcę odpowiedzieć panu z Czech, który pytał, koleżanka to rozwinie, jak obywatele polscy się do tego zapatrują. Sędziowie polscy spotykają się z obywatelami. Ja między innymi za spotkanie z obywatelami w Lublinie mam jedno z postępowań wyjaśniających, które może za chwilę zmienić się w dyscyplinarne. Sędziowie biorą udział w takich lekcjach w szkołach dla młodzieży, jeżdżą nawet na festiwale młodzieżowe, gdzie opowiadają o zasadach konstytucji i prawa unijnego. Za to mają także wszczynane postępowania. Ale dochodzi do tego także, że dyrektorzy szkół boją się zapraszać z obawy przed tym, że będą szykanowani przez władzę. To jest sytuacja naprawdę bez precedensu w naszej historii po upadku komunizmu. Nie chcę przedłużać.
In Polish, okay? Pozytywnym efektem tego całego kryzysu praworządności, który ma miejsce aktualnie w Polsce, jest właśnie zbliżenie się prawników, sędziów, prokuratorów, adwokatów do społeczeństwa. Znaczna część społeczeństwa rozumie zagrożenia związane z łamaniem praworządności, popiera nas i wspiera nas w naszych działaniach, stąd dość liczne stosunkowo manifestacje, wiece pod Sądem Najwyższym w obronie wolnych sędziów. Spektakularną dość akcją była sytuacja z próbą odwołania prezes Gersdorf poprzez tutaj zmiany ustawowe. I to jest bardzo jakby pozytywny efekt tej całej negatywnej sytuacji. Natomiast niestety tutaj bardzo złą jakby rolę pełnią media publiczne. Media publiczne, które w sposób w zasadzie zorganizowany deprecjonują sędziów, prokuratorów. Afera hejterska, o której tutaj wspomniano, która miała miejsce bezpośrednio praktycznie pod okiem ministra sprawiedliwości. No, tajemnicą Poliszynela jest, że nie mogło to się odbywać bez jego przynajmniej cichej akceptacji. Ostatnie badania, które zostały przeprowadzone, badania takie opinii publicznej, kto jest obwiniany za kryzys praworządności, kryzys wymiaru sprawiedliwości w Polsce, pozwalają na podanie takich danych, że 41% badanych wskazało, że odpowiedzialność za to ponosi partia rządząca, ponosi PiS. Tylko 18% wskazało sędziów. Zatem mam takie przekonanie, że ta świadomość jest stosunkowo duża, natomiast no niestety są też pewne zamknięte na to środowiska, do których bardzo trudno przebić się z tą wiedzą, gdyż no...
Jest jeszcze coś, co się nazywa ekonomiczną presją na obywateli. Rząd zastosował szereg socjalnych programów, bardzo bogatych, które oczywiście spełniają swoją rolę społeczną, bardzo istotną, ale cały czas używa tej presji politycznej, że tylko ten rząd jest w stanie utrzymać te programy socjalne, które powodują, że znaczna część obywateli nawet w wielu prywatnych rozmowach wypowiada się, że argumentem podczas demokratycznych wyborów jest przelew na konto odpowiednich kwot. To niestety jest niezwykle przykre.
Jednak liczby 250 000 demonstrantów, jak było w Pradze, nigdy nie udało się w proteście czy w obronie praworządności w Polsce zorganizować. Natomiast jedno jest pewne, że obywatele, którzy w pewnych momentach licznie na terenie całej Polski stawali w obronie wolnych sądów, byli świadomi tego, że akcja obywateli i prawników jest wspólna. Obywatele dążą do tego, żeby mieć uczciwe, rzetelne sądy, a prawnicy do tego, żeby mieć możliwość godnego wykonywania swojego zawodu. Bez strachu, ale też bez jakichś propozycji bonusów finansowych. Po prostu by prawnicy byli obiektywni i orzekali zgodnie z faktami i prawem. Natomiast odpowiadając na pierwsze pytanie, to powiem tak, że ten spór, który się toczy w Polsce, to nie jest jakiś wyjątkowy spór dotyczący subtelności prawnej. Spór idzie o podstawową kwestię. Chodzi o to, żeby polski wymiar sprawiedliwości wyglądał tak, jak w czasach, kiedy ja zaczynałem pracę w prokuraturze. A było to tak, że w sprawie karnej oskarżał prokurator członek rządzącej partii przed sądem czy przed sędzią, który też należał do tej samej rządzącej partii. Do tej samej partii często należał również obrońca, tylko podsądny był bezpartyjny. I teraz władzy chodzi również o to, by w procesie i karnym, i cywilnym, i każdym innym brali udział prawnicy posłuszni tej partii, tej władzy. I chodzi też o to, by wolni ludzie zostali utemperowani rękami prawników, a my się na to nie zgodzimy.
Very quickly, thank you very much for organizing this debate. Thank you most of all to these extremely courageous people who have been, are, and I'm sure will keep on defending the rule of law in Poland. I'm Polish, and I have the deepest respect. My question is, however, to the MEPs present here. The situation in Poland is somewhat without precedent, I guess, in the European Union, although you can see example also in other countries, meaning, for example, Hungary. So my question is, how is there a way to prevent this disease, so to speak, from spreading? Because Poland is cracking, the society is cracking, and we are also European, which means that not only Polish society is cracking, but the European society as well. So what do we do not to break it? Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. I'm Philippe from Human Rights Watch, and first of all, I want to thank the four panelists for their presence here and your very strong and authoritative testimonies, which in fact kind of contrast a bit with the mood in town when it comes to how to follow up on Article 7 in relation to Poland. And I think we hear, stuff like a fresh start, re-engaging, etc. And what you're talking is really about, retaliation, purge of the judiciary, which is continuing at high speed. So my question is addressed to both the panelists and the MEPs. What would be your advice to the new Commission, and in particular to the two commissioners who are leading the work on the rule of law in relation to using Article 7 in the next few months or year in order to really ensure that Poland is held accountable for what it's continuing to do on the judiciary? Thank you.
Okay.
Proszę Państwa, nam trudno doradzać politykom Komisji Europejskiej, bo widzimy kolej rzeczy z artykułem 7. Nie ukrywamy, że wielu prawników w Polsce lokowało pewne nadzieje w tej procedurze, ale wydaje się, że to jest presja, która nie odnosi spodziewanego efektu. Naszym zdaniem o wiele skuteczniejsze są wyroki Trybunału Sprawiedliwości Unii Europejskiej pod jednym warunkiem, że Unia będzie monitorować wcielanie w życie, czyli wykonywanie tych wyroków w krajach członkowskich. To jest dla nas sytuacja niezwykle ważna, dlatego że polski Sąd Najwyższy kilka tygodni temu wydał orzeczenie w oparciu o wyrok TSUE, kierunkowy wyrok, który był bardzo precyzyjny, a polscy politycy odnośnie tego orzeczenia Sądu Najwyższego mówią, że to nie jest wyrok, to jest stanowisko jakichś tam osób, którego nie będziemy respektować. Te same sformułowania, które padały wobec niezależnego Trybunału Konstytucyjnego w Polsce przed jego rozbiciem i politycznym przejęciem. Nie będziemy publikować nawet orzeczeń Trybunału, powiedziała pani premier, która wtedy rządziła i nie zrobiła tego. Więc od państwa zależy, czy prawo unijne, które jest wcielane wyrokiem Sądu Unijnego, będzie respektowane w Polsce, czy będzie fikcją.
It's difficult to answer, where is the lady, to answer your question, but it's an extremely important one. I would say one point. I see a Polish public television here. No, you are the camera from Poland. So if this camera, if this television related honestly on what we have just heard from judges and prosecutors from Poland, that would already help the Polish society to understand what's going on. The same should happen in other countries. Information and education, those issues are difficult. And I do hope that our common work will really, I follow on the words of Mr. Żurek, will really help the situation, because Poles are very pro-European and estimate very highly European institutions, our common institutions. And really acting together is for the benefit of the judiciary, independence of the judiciary in Poland, in other countries that we named, but also in all others, so that the disease does not spread. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. As an MEP, also answer the question? Or? That's okay, but I'm looking at, you know what, then I'm first going to give Michal the floor, because I think you have to really leave by 2. Well, so do I, but...
Well, wait, but then let's just continue, of course.
Okay, yes. You take the floor first.
Thank you very much, and I'll try to also answer your question. And first of all, sort of sitting here listening to the testimonies, it struck me as quite amazing, because I mean, my understanding was that judges are supposed, are the people who speak in measured words and solemn pronouncement, and hearing the 4 of our panelists speaking such clear, stark terms, then testifies not just to their courage, but also to the severity of the rule of law crisis. And there are obviously many kind of legal complexities with the different measures and different laws and different actions, but I think out of this complexity there emerges a clear picture and a clear story which was told, which is the attempt to politically subjugate the judiciary, the prosecution, the rule of law, and the harassment of those who defend it. And the European Union cannot simply, or not the European Union, but this cannot be tolerated in an EU member state. So I think for us, as members of Parliament, it is clear that we, even if, say, the member states or in the Council, the situation could be leaning more towards sort of, letting it die out, the Article 7 procedure, or start to re-engage I mean, of course, engagement dialogue is important, but I think there's a strong and clear political will here in this Parliament, including from our political group, but also others, to keep this up. Also pressure on the Commission to follow up on these developments. There is already on Monday discussion in the Libe Committee in Strasbourg on Monday evening as a follow-up on the Council dialogue, which was this week. So that's that's another attempt to keep this on the agenda. And then I think, as Judge Jurek very clearly stated, we are in a new situation in which the ruling of the European Court of Justice is basically being disregarded. So it's no longer just about national judges arguing against politicians, but there's a European Court of Justice, and European law is being undermined, and those who want to apply it are being harassed. So I think this should also be a wake-up call for the European institutions. That's all from me. I do apologize, I have to run to the airport, but thanks everyone for coming, and it's great it's such an attendance, and I think it shows the kind of support that there is for the cause of the rule of law in Poland. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, I think besides speaking out publicly in support of the judges and criticizing the Polish government, we have, of course, an important role in pushing the Commission for using its enforcement role. And that is political control. And I think that we should push, indeed, the Commission for making sure that there's no impunity. The Court of Justice has been clear. So interim measures, injunctions should come immediately now, I think. And we could also push the Commission for more transparent monitoring, so that also the Commission that investigates what's going on and shares that with the different institutions of the EU. I think this is very important, and keep it on the agenda. And I should also say that we need to ally with our members of national parliaments, so that they can also push their governments, the national governments, for speak out in the council in order to not let it go, what the Polish government is doing.
Thank you. Okay, my own 2 cents worth. There are a number of things that we can do, but I think we all need to be very honest to ourselves. The main ingredient is political will. You cannot, and I'm saying this because I know there are different political views around the table about how the European Union should be organized. You cannot, on the one hand, say the European Union is purely a cooperation between national governments, and at the same time expect the European Union to intervene when the values are trampled on. The two don't go together. I mean, this is something those who are there. I can see, because in different countries there are rule of law issues. And all depending on which political color happens to be in power, the political groups of this house are, more or less critical. And this goes for all political groups, including my own. But this is really a question we have to ask ourselves. And I think we should also recognize that the intergovernmental Europe, which comes together in the Council, is simply not equipped to deal with this kind of questions. I mean, just imagine there are 28 government leaders sitting around the table. They're all having lunch together, and then I don't know or dinner, and the Dutch Prime Minister is sitting next to Viktor Orban, saying, "Viktor, can you please pass me the salt? By the way, can you leave the judiciary alone?" It doesn't work. It really serious. It's not a joke. It doesn't work that way. So if we want the European Union to really, really uphold those values, we also have to equip the European Union with the powers to do so. That's one. Secondly, we have a number of instruments, and we are developing instruments like the mechanism, the so-called DRF Pact, the Democracy, Rule of Law, Fundamental Rights Pact, that this House has called for already 3 years now. Because then at least, if all the member states are monitored, none of them can hide behind the argument anymore. Oh, why us? We're the victim. Oh, but they too, but they also have problems. Everybody will be measured by the same standards, by the same yardsticks. I think that would be helpful. Thirdly, I think we also need to look at funding. I have some question marks over the whole conditionality issue, because it's not the strong instrument that some people believe it is, but I do have a bit of difficulty listening to all this
and at the same time knowing that the Polish government in the council today is going to ask for massive amounts of money in order to implement the Green Deal. You know, difficult. If you don't respect the rulings of the European Court of Justice, then you should simply not be part of the European Union. It's that simple. You want to be part of a club, you play by the rules. Full stop. You want to be, you know, if you want to be on a football team, you cannot have your own rules. You have to play by the rules. Otherwise, don't play football. And I see a serious risk of this issue not just destroying the rule of law in Poland, but, you know, like a virus getting into the EU institutions. Because Poland at some point will also have to nominate, I don't know, a judge for the European Court of Justice, a member for the European Prosecutor's Office, members in Eurojust. Poland is participating in all sorts of information sharing, police and justice cooperation. We're setting up interoperability with a single search function to search all the databases in the whole of Europe. Do we feel comfortable with the Polish authorities getting access to that kind of information? No? And this has to be addressed. Now, there's a new European Commission. And I have to say, on the one hand, Mrs. von der Leyen, before being confirmed, spoke very tough language about the rule of law. But she toned down her voice when it came to actually getting the nomination of the council. Now, I hope that was only temporary, and that this commission is going to be much tougher. I mean, much tougher than the previous commission. Because I think the previous commission, although in the case of Poland they did very timidly take some steps, they outsourced it mainly to the European Court of Justice. Hungary was mainly left alone, and the commission has also ignored the systematic nature or the systemic nature of the violations. Because it's not just the judiciary, it's NGOs, it's media, it's women's rights, it's gay rights, it's academic freedom and all the rest of it. It's part of an authoritarian, anti-democratic agenda. Let's recognize that. And the Commission and the Council have to take their responsibility. We have written a letter today to the Council asking them to urgently discuss the situation in Malta, where we see different but you know, comparable problems. If they don't respond quickly, then the changes become irreversible. Because what are we going to do? Let's say one day there will be a sensible government in Poland. What are we going to do? Sack all the judges that have been appointed by this government? I mean, where's that going to end? You know, so Commission, Council, Member States, take your responsibility and act quickly and with determination. I think that would be my response. So you'll have the backing of the European Parliament for all of this. Yeah? Cross-party. Okay, I would like to thank all the speakers, not just for being here and sharing your thoughts with us, but in particular for standing up for justice, standing up for what you believe in, showing courage and not being intimidated. So keep up the good work. You have our support. Thank you very much. Thanks everybody else for coming. Thanks to the colleagues. And looking forward to the next session.